National Center for Justice for Palestinians. Shane's work has included filing complaints to the CRA about charitable funds that are being used to support the Israeli military. In fact, the two of those submissions actually predate the 18-month figure that I mentioned of a dozen or so other charities that we've also submitted. So Shane has supported those in regard to the Israeli military, and as well has been involved in broader efforts to hold Canadian officials accountable for refusing to halt the flow of these funds. And he will speak about that accountability. And thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks to Just Peace Advocates and to the Canadian Foreign Policy Institute for including me on such an esteemed panel. I guess I would say that yesterday's announcement by the CRA, as we all know, it comes after years of campaigning by community advocates who stand in solidarity not just with the Palestinian people, but also stand for the rule of law. And CRA policy, it states that Canadian registered charities, when they carry on activities outside of Canada, they can't be used as a conduit to funnel resources to an organization that is not serving a charitable purpose. And the policy of the CRA explicitly states that supporting a foreign army is not a charitable activity. Now, despite this, Canadian charities, they continue to flout CRA policy by funding the university education of Israeli soldiers with donations that are accorded charitable, tax-deductible status in Canada. And this occurs even though the Israeli armed forces, they operate on an annual budget that's in excess of $20 billion US. And even though the cost of post-secondary education for individuals transitioning from military service to civilian life is already covered by Israel's Ministry of Defense through its foundation for the unit, through the foundation and unit for discharged soldiers. And Canada's been repeatedly made aware that Canadian organizations which use their charitable status to effectively subsidize Israel's Ministry of Defense by funding these educational programs for Israeli soldiers are operating in this way. And these organizations, apart from some which have been mentioned, include HISEG, the Canadian Zionist Cultural Association as well. And Canada has refused to take any enforcement action under the Income Tax Act or CRA policy, despite the fact that these organizations incentivize enlistment in the Israeli military by rewarding those who participate in its combat operations. One of the recipients of money from the CZCA and HISEG is something known as the Duvdevin Scholarship and Mentorship Program. And for decades, Duvdevin has its military unit, an undercover military unit in the IDF. It's been the subject of widespread international criticism for an array of human rights violations, including the killing of innocent Palestinian civilians. And in 2019, the Duvdevin Foundation, which is based in Israel, it reported that it had been working in partnership with HISEG and also the CZCA to grant academic scholarships to Duvdevin alumni. And scholarships were based on financial need, but also excellence during Army service. And they also recognized explicitly in their promotional materials that the CZCA could be used for tax benefit purposes. And I guess to conclude, I'll note that last November, the Canadian branch of the International Center of Justice for Palestinians wrote to the CRA notifying them that the Canadian Charity to Israeli Military Pipeline, it was a form of Canadian complicity in Israeli military atrocities, and that we're investigating and will be endeavoring to seek accountability in both domestic and international forums. So we were quite pleased with the ICJ's advisory opinion that was issued on July 19th on the legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel in the occupied territories. And the court observed quite specifically that states, including Canada, are under an obligation to not render aid or assistance, including economic aid and assistance, in maintaining the situation created by Israel's illegal presence in the occupied territories. They also went on to state that states must ensure that any impediment resulting from the illegal presence of Israel in the occupied territories is brought to an end. any impediment to the Palestinian people's ability to exercise their right to self-determination is brought to an end. So I think it goes without saying that subsidizing Israel's illegal military occupation to the tune of millions of dollars a year through violations of Canadian law and policy, that's a clear impediment to the exercise of Palestinian self-determination. And for that reason, we have to continue doing everything that we can to pressure Canada to enforce the law and halt this practice. Thank you.